The entire alien court went silent, not when the sentence was announced, but when the humans smiled. Because no one had ever smiled at her and survived. Not the generals. Not the warlords. Not even the assassins who thought they were fearless. Yet the humans stood there calmly, as if death itself had just been politely introduced. And somehow that was far more terrifying. In the far reaches of the galaxy, where ancient empires ruled with absolute power, humanity was still considered insignificant. A young species. Emotional. Fragile. Unpredictable. The great empires tolerated humans the way storms tolerate dust, barely noticing them, unless they became inconvenient. And right now, one human had become very inconvenient. High above 1,000 conquered worlds, inside the towering crystal chamber of the Zereth Empire, judgment had been passed. The punishment was not execution. No, that would have been mercy. Instead, they chose something far worse. A punishment reserved only for those the Empire could not control, but refused to kill. Bring her. The Emperor's voice echoed like thunder across the chamber. Massive doors opened, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. She entered without a sound, the Queen of Silence. Every species in the court reacted the same way. Eyes lowered, breath slowed. Instinct screamed danger. She moved like a shadow given form, tall, elegant, impossibly beautiful, and utterly terrifying. Her silver hair flowed like liquid light. Her eyes, cold, glowing blue, held no warmth, no mercy. Only awareness. Predatory awareness. She did not look at the crowd. She never did, because prey did not matter. But today, there was something new in the room. A human. Daniel Carter stood between two armored guards. No chains. No resistance. Just watching. Observing. Learning. The aliens whispered among themselves. This one will break fast. He doesn't understand. He will beg within minutes. But Daniel didn't beg. He didn't even flinch. The Emperor raised his hand. Human, he declared, voice heavy with authority. For your crimes against the Zereth Empire, you are sentenced to permanent bonding. A ripple of cruel amusement passed through the court. They all knew what that meant. You will live, the Emperor continued slowly, with her. A pause. A deliberate one. To the end. A few nobles chuckled quietly. Others leaned forward, waiting. This was the best part. The realization. The fear. The collapse. It always came next. But it didn't. Daniel looked at her. Not quickly. Not nervously. He simply looked. Studying her like she was real. Not a weapon. Not a legend. Just a person. For the first time in centuries, the Queen of Silence noticed someone looking at her without fear. I accept, Daniel said calmly. The words hit the chamber like a shockwave. Silence. Complete silence. Even the Emperor leaned forward slightly. Repeat that, he said. Daniel didn't hesitate. I accept. Confusion spread across alien faces. This was wrong. This was not how this was supposed to go. Then something even stranger happened. The Queen of Silence turned her head fully toward him. That alone made several guards tense. She rarely acknowledged anyone directly. Not unless they were already dead. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. Searching. Scanning. Waiting. Fear should have been there. It always was. But instead, she found something else. Calm. Curiosity. And something even more dangerous. Understanding. For a fraction of a second, something moved behind her cold expression. A flicker. So small no one else noticed. But it was there. Curiosity. The Emperor's voice cut through the moment. The bond will begin immediately. Guards stepped forward. Energy restraints activated. The process was cold. Clinical. Efficient. A living cage, built not from walls, but from connection. As the bond initiated, invisible energy surged between them. The court watched closely. This was the moment where it always began. Pain. Instability. Collapse. Daniel winced slightly, but did not fall. The scientists frowned. That's unusual. The Queen of Silence felt it too. The connection. It was supposed to overwhelm, break, consume. But this time, it didn't. Instead, It steadied. Her eyes narrowed slightly. That had never happened before. Not once. The Emperor stood slowly. Take them to the observation station.
His tone had changed.
Less amused, more cautious. Because something had just gone wrong. And in the Zirith Empire, things were not allowed to go wrong. Hours later, far from the crowded court, beyond trade routes and civilization, a silent station drifted in deep space.
Cold.
Isolated. Watching. Waiting. The doors opened. Daniel stepped inside first. No hesitation. No fear. She was already there, standing by the massive window, looking out into endless stars. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The guards watched through hidden cameras, holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable.
The attack.
The scream.
The death.
But instead, Daniel placed his bag down, looked around casually, then back at her, and said, "Hello." The single word echoed softly through the room. The guards froze. No one had ever greeted her before. The Queen of Silence didn't move.
Didn't attack. Didn't speak.
But inside her mind, something shifted. Something ancient. Something buried under years of silence and war. For the first time in centuries, someone had spoken to her, like she wasn't a weapon. And for reasons she did not understand, she did not want to kill him. Outside the station, the stars burned quietly, unaware that something impossible had just begun. Because the galaxy believed this human would die, just like all the others. But the truth was far more dangerous. This human was not trying to survive her. He was trying to understand her. And that would change everything. The first man who greeted her was still alive. 3 days passed, then 5, then 10. And the guards stopped laughing. Inside the silent observation station, something was wrong. The human was not breaking. He was not afraid. He was not hiding in corners, whispering prayers, or counting his final hours. Instead, he was living like he belonged there. Daniel Carter woke each day without fear in his eyes. He fixed broken lights no one had cared about for years. He adjusted the temperature controls. He even cleaned the unused sections of the room like it mattered. And he treated her like she was not a weapon. Lyra, the Queen of Silence, watched everything. From the shadows. From the window. From the quiet that had protected her for years. Every movement. Every breath. Every strange human habit. He spoke often. Too often. "The stars look closer from here," Daniel said one day, standing near the window. No response. "They almost feel reachable." Still silence. He nodded slightly. "Yeah, maybe that's just a human thing." Days passed like this. Words met silence. Silence met patience. Then one moment changed everything. "You speak too much." Her voice cut through the air like a blade.
Cold.
Controlled.
Precise.
Daniel paused, then gave a small smile. "Yeah, I've been told that before." In the control room, guards froze. She spoke. After all this time, but inside the chamber, Daniel didn't react like it was something impossible. He just leaned back casually. "Humans talk a lot," he said, "even when no one answers." Lyra studied him again, her glowing blue eyes searching deeper. "Why?" she asked. Daniel thought for a moment, then answered simply, "Because silence can feel heavy." He looked toward the stars. "Talking makes it lighter." That answer stayed with her, long after the moment passed. That night, while he slept, Lyra stood near the window. But she wasn't watching the stars. She was thinking. Weeks passed, and something impossible began to happen. The human was still alive. Not only alive, stable. The scientists monitoring them grew uneasy. This is not normal. The bond should be breaking him. But it isn't. Because every previous subject had failed. Their minds collapsed. Their bodies weakened. Their thoughts shattered. But Daniel was unchanged. No, he was adapting. Inside the chamber, he placed 2 food containers on the table. "You should eat," he said calmly. "I do not require food," Lyra replied. "Maybe not," Daniel nodded. "But you can still enjoy it." A strange statement. one she had never considered. She hesitated. A rare thing. Slowly, she moved closer. The guards leaned toward their screens. She sat. For the first time in recorded history, the Queen of Silence chose to sit beside someone. Daniel didn't react. He simply pushed the container toward her. Try it.
She studied it.
Then him. Then the food again. Carefully, she took a bite, and something shifted. Not in the room. Not in the station. Inside her. Days later, she finally asked the question that had been building in her mind. Human. Daniel looked up. Why are you not afraid of me? The air felt heavier. Even the machines seemed quieter. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He thought.
Carefully.
Because I don't think you're a monster, he said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You deny the truth? No, Daniel said calmly. I think the stories are real. A dangerous answer. You destroyed fleets, he continued. You ended wars. People feared you. The room grew colder. Then he added, but that doesn't make you a monster. Silence. For the first time, she had no immediate response. Daniel stood and walked toward the window. The stars stretched endlessly before them. On Earth, he said quietly, we live beside dangerous things. He glanced at her. Creatures that can kill us. She remained still,
listening.
But we still try to understand them, he continued. We don't call them evil. Sometimes they're just surviving. Her gaze shifted slightly. You were made into a weapon, Daniel said. They trained you, used you. And when they got afraid, he looked back at her. They locked you away. Something flickered in her expression.
Sharp.
Hidden.
Real. Truth.
They made you this way, he finished. The silence that followed was different now. Not empty. Not cold.
Alive.
You speak like you understand, she said quietly. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. Humans are good at one thing. What is that? Being misunderstood. That answer hit deeper than anything else. Far away, inside the Zereth Empire's capital, the High Council was no longer amused. The human is still alive. And the bond. Stable. That word changed everything. The Emperor leaned forward slowly. Explain. A scientist activated a projection. The energy between them is no longer destructive. It is balanced. Silence fell across the chamber. That should be impossible, one leader whispered. If this continues, the scientist added, she will regain full control of her power. Now the danger was clear. An unstable weapon could be controlled. A stable one
could not.
And the human? The Emperor asked. The scientist hesitated. He is the cause. That was enough. Then remove the human, the Emperor said coldly. No hesitation. No debate. If the bond ended, control would return. A silent execution order was sent. Back on the station, Daniel was repairing a panel near the wall. You should rest, Lyra said suddenly. He looked back, surprised. Was that concern? A pause. Yes. He smiled slightly. I'll take that. For a brief moment, something unfamiliar appeared in her expression. Not cold, not distant, almost human. But then, her head turned sharply toward the door. Her eyes narrowed. Daniel noticed instantly. What is it? Her voice dropped. Focused.
Deadly.
We are no longer alone. At that exact moment, the door exploded inward. 4 armored assassins rushed in, weapons raised. Movements perfect. Silent killers of the Empire. Target confirmed. One of them said, Human Daniel Carter. He never finished. Because Lyra moved. Faster than sight. Faster than thought. The first assassin slammed into the wall. The second fired. But she stepped between the blast and Daniel. The energy struck her. She didn't slow down. The room erupted into chaos. Daniel dropped behind cover. The assassins tried to regroup, but it was already over. 2 down. 1 disarmed. 1 frozen in fear. Because she stood in front of the human, protecting him. The final assassin whispered in shock. You chose him. Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto his. Cold.
Certain.
Yes. And in that moment, The Empire lost its greatest weapon. The moment she said yes, the galaxy changed. Not with explosions, not with war, but with a single decision that no one had ever expected. She had chosen, and she had chosen a human. Inside the shattered chamber, the air was thick with silence. The assassins lay broken across the floor, weapons scattered, smoke fading into the cold metallic walls. Daniel slowly stepped out from behind cover. His heart was still racing, but his voice remained calm. "Well," he said quietly, glancing at the destroyed doorway, "I guess we're not prisoners anymore." Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her eyes remained locked on the corridor, listening, calculating.
"They will not stop," she said.
Daniel nodded slightly. "Yeah, figure that part." For a brief moment, they stood in silence. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was shared. Then Lyra turned. "We must leave." No hesitation. No doubt. Because she understood something clearly now. The Empire would destroy everything to regain control. Far away, inside the black crystal halls of the Zereth Empire, chaos had begun. She attacked Imperial assassins. She defended the human. She has broken command. The council voices echoed with anger. But the Emperor remained still, watching the recorded moment again. The exact second she stepped in front of Daniel. That single movement told him everything. "She is no longer under our control," he said coldly. Silence fell.
Heavy.
"Dangerous. Prepare the fleet." Not soldiers. Not agents. A fleet. "If the human cannot be removed quietly," the Emperor continued, "then both will be erased." Orders spread instantly across the Empire. Warships activated. Weapons charged. Commanders mobilized. Because for the first time, the Empire was afraid. Back on the station, alarms began to echo through the corridors. Daniel grabbed his small pack. A few supplies. Nothing more. Lyra moved to the control systems. Her hands moved with precision and speed. "There is a patrol ship in the docking ring," she said. Daniel smirked slightly. "Let me guess, stolen?" She looked at him. "Yes." Minutes later, they moved through the silent corridors. No guard stopped them. No one dared, because the Queen of Silence was no longer something they could control. The ship launched into space, engines burning bright as it cut through the darkness. Behind them, the station faded into nothing. For a moment, there was peace. Then the alarm screamed. Daniel looked at the scanner. His expression shifted. "That's not good." Lyra stepped beside him. Her eyes narrowed. Ships. Hundreds. No, thousands. An entire Imperial fleet surrounded the system. Massive warships forming a closing circle. Fighters moving into attack formation. Weapons glowing like distant suns. "They were waiting," she said quietly. Daniel exhaled slowly. Most would panic. Most would freeze. But not him. "Got a plan?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She watched the fleet,
Studying it.
Then she stepped forward, placed her hand on the control panel. "Stop the ship." Daniel blinked. "You serious?" Her voice remained calm. "They believe I am broken." Her glowing eyes shifted toward the fleet. "Let them be wrong." Daniel looked at her, then nodded. The engines powered down. The ship drifted. Alone. Surrounded. Across the fleet, confusion spread. Why have they stopped? Are they surrendering? Inside the flagship, the commander raised his hand. "Fire." The first wave of fighters surged forward, weapons blazing. Inside the small ship, Lyra closed her eyes. For years, her power had been chaos. Unstable. Uncontrolled.
But now,
It was different. The bond. The human. It had changed her. Balanced her. For the first time, she was complete. Her eyes opened, and space itself seemed to react. A pulse of invisible energy exploded outward. The first wave of fighters froze, then fell silent. Engines dead, weapons gone, systems erased. Shock spread across the fleet. "What is happening?" Another pulse followed, stronger, wider. Entire warships shut down. Massive cruisers drifted helplessly. Panic erupted. Retreat. Fall back. But it was too late. Wave after wave of energy moved across the battlefield.
Silent.
Precise. Unstoppable. Within minutes, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was nothing but drifting metal.
Defeated.
Inside the ship, silence returned. Daniel stared at the scanner. Hundreds, thousands of dead signals. He leaned back slowly. Okay, he said. That was impressive. Lyra looked at him. The glow in her eyes slowly faded. But something remained. Not cold. Not empty.
Alive.
Across the galaxy, sensors recorded everything. Trade stations. Colonies. Hidden networks. The story spread faster than any official message. The Empire had been stopped. Not by another empire. Not by a massive army. But by one human who refused to feel fear. And one warrior who refused to be a weapon. Days later, their ship drifted through quiet space. No pursuit. No orders. No chains. Just freedom. Daniel looked out at the stars. So, what now? Lyra stood beside him. For the first time, not distant. Now, she said softly, we choose our own path. Not the Empire. Not the past.
Them.
Together. Far across the galaxy, whispers began to change. Humans were no longer seen as weak. They were seen as something else. Something dangerous. Something impossible. Because if one human could stand beside the most feared being in existence, without fear, then what else were humans capable of? The answer spread through the stars like a rising storm. Never underestimate a human.